Hi everyone, and we're really delighted to be here. And I was just reflecting that I've always been on that side in this wonderful venue watching amazing artists playing on stage. I can't believe I'm actually standing here on the other side of that today. So I'm a bit overcome. So if I get a bit emotional, it's because of all of that. We're here today, Greg and I, just to talk about our experience of implementing what we've called in our institution the guided learner journey. The principles that we put together and we developed as an institution, as a community, over a period of about a year, 18 months, and then how we found a partner that would be able to deliver that with us in the form of Canvas, how we've put that together, what that actually looks like in real life in terms of the implementation, and then what our plans are for the future and where we see that going. So a bit of a journey for us, based on our principles of what we've called the guided learner journey for our students. A very brief introduction about, first of all, the University of Hertfordshire, to give you a little bit of context about what we are as an institution and the kind of problem that we faced as an institution, to give that some depth. Hertfordshire, for those who are not aware of the geography of the United Kingdom, is just north and slightly west of London. We border onto London. It's a lovely rural area in that northern area, but we do get a lot of students from North London and from the surrounding counties around us there. So we're southeast of England. We are, as I said, in the country. It's a beautiful campus, lots of greenery, lots of open fields, beautiful countryside, but really only 20 minutes on the train then into London. So we do get a lot of students coming looking for that London experience, but not living in the centre. And as I said, a lot of students who commute from that kind of northern edge of London as well. We have 10 academic schools, ranging quite a bit in size from our smallest school, which is in the bottom right-hand corner there, School of Physics, Astronomy and Maths, with just about 400 students. Pretty much all of them undergraduates, with a few, a smaller number of research students and PhD students. They don't teach any top master's programme. All their top programmes are undergraduate. To our biggest school, which is in the top left corner, our School of Health and Social Work, which has just under 4,800 students. And in total, we have about 24,500 students in our institution. Some of those students are also overseas. We have a number of partners that we work with. And so our range of programmes goes from very campus-based and what we call blended, and I think a lot of you use the same term, but very blended, using the VLE and a lot of campus-based delivery, to purely online. So we have a number of students who work with us purely online, or work online and go into some face-to-face sessions with partners. So we've got a big range of delivery, lots of different students at lots of different stages, complex institution, like most of you would appreciate if you're in higher education. Where we were about 4 years ago was that we actually had a well-established VLE, which we had developed in-house and had been developed and we'd been using for about 12 years. There was a lot of history there. Everyone was very fond of it. Everyone was very comfortable using it. And we actually had a lot of really good feedback from staff and students around our VLE. Because it was bespoke, because we were reactive to any demands in-house, we were able to actually develop that in the way we wanted to as things had progressed over the 12 years or so that we were using that VLE. So it was called StudyNet, and it was one of the most well-used online learning environments in the country. It was supporting a lot of our learning and teaching activity. University of Hertfordshire was the Centre for Excellence in Learning and Teaching in Blended Learning when the Centres of Excellence were set up by the Higher Education Academy. And StudyNet was very integral to what we did. Most of our modules were on StudyNet. Most of our students used it quite extensively. Our student feedback was actually very good. We were always highly rated in terms of resources and the managed learning environment, but it wasn't universally positive, as I'm sure you can guess with most student feedback. But we decided it was the right time, about 4 years ago, to review the VLE, to think about where we were going, and to think about what we wanted to do as an institution in terms of learning and teaching, and how we could actually live up to what one of our core values are in the university of transforming lives. How could we use our VLE, our technology-enhanced learning, better to transform our students' lives? And what would we need from an online learning environment to help us realise that vision for the next 5 to 10 years? So we undertook an extensive review. It did start with students. We listened extensively to the students' feedback. We had lots of open consultations with them, and we asked them what they thought about StudyNet and what they wanted to see in the future. And things like being more interactive, getting more updates, being better organized, better consistency in module sites and so on were the sorts of key things that were coming out from students. We then undertook a very, very extensive consultation with staff. We spent a number of months going around all of our schools in focus groups, listening to feedback, collating that. We had an online site where, where staff and students could post comments around what they wanted their future learning environment to be. And from that, we drew up what we said were our future aspirations. And what we really looked at was what we currently had on the left-hand side. And I think you'll agree most VLEs turned into that idea of something that was really just a repository of materials, places where staff would put materials, slides, handouts, even videos, all sorts of bits and pieces, and they would try and organize that in some way in folder structures and all these types of organizations. But it was really a repository, which then required some clever work in terms of the tutors explaining how that fitted in to the general learning and teaching and the timetable and so on that students would follow. We did have that idea of mass messaging, and it tended to be one way, where we would push messages out to students a lot, and although we had discussion forums and blogs, it seemed still that that was a primarily one-way communication system. We were collecting a lot of data, we were prescribing a lot of services, and we did have a lot of control of that VLE, understandable given it was in-house built. But what we really then thought, and what we got from that consultation and what everyone in the university had bought into, was this idea of moving away to what you see on the right-hand side, and these were aspirational, very high-level views of what we wanted. Rather than repositories, we wanted something that guided the learners through their journey in a meaningful way and allowed them to interact in that journey and to take the journey that we would lay out for them, but allow them to adapt it and make it their own and actually add to it, and so that it became a much more personal journey for them. We wanted to improve our messaging, we wanted to improve our analytics, we wanted to have a bit more of that student choice, bringing your own devices, but also applications and other things into that learning journey, and taking a view that we would actually control what was essential, but allow that a lot more choice, both for staff and for students, within that learning journey itself. And Greg's going to now tell you about how we went about doing that.
So with our vision that Karen's just gone through, what we wanted to do was actually, this is what we thought we'd heard from our university community, but we wanted to validate that. So what we did within our existing VLE is we built a prototype module to flesh out some of these concepts that we thought we'd heard. So it's an academic skills module. It was generic, so as it could be used across the institution. And as part of that, we involved 100 students. We held focus groups and interviews with them to collate feedback about how things were working and some of the challenges they had and things that we might have missed. But we also involved 25 members of staff, and some of these staff had their existing modules mocked up in this new environment so they could see how their teaching delivery would actually work. So we encompassed the entire university, both staff and students, and this is broadly what it looked like. Some of the things that we'd heard from staff and students was they wanted to see the teaching team, so we put the profiles very front and centre of the landing page for the module. They also wanted to understand the learning outcomes that were being delivered as part of this module delivery. So again, they were very prominent on the homepage. Students had also told us that they wanted to see what they were expected to do on a day or week-by-week basis. So we looked at breaking things out into weekly structures or unit structures or topic structures. So here we can see week 1. This is finding and using information. So the students understand what the topic is that's being covered this week. And beneath that is supported by a range of activities. So some were self-directed learning, some was a reflection exercise that we're asking the students to do. But also, again, we put the learning outcomes front and centre of that week, what were being developed and perhaps what were being assessed at this point. From that consultation and interviews and focus groups with staff and students that took part in that, we took back and we came back with some principles. And I won't read these word for word, but from the students, we really heard that they wanted each module website to have a consistent look and feel, a consistent kind of delivery. They expected to find the same information in the same areas as the module website. Alongside that, they wanted a search functionality so as they could go and find the materials and have a look. But they wanted that at program level as well as within the module, so the combination of modules that contribute to the delivery. They also wanted to see a timeline overview, so that idea of what should I be doing today or this week, but also they wanted to see that at program level. So how is what I'm doing this week or as part of this module contributing to my overall curriculum development here at the institution? We heard that from staff as well. Both staff and students wanted simpler mechanisms to look into linking through to external content that we had, either provided from the library, so journals and e-books and physical books on shelves, through to other resources such as videos that might be available from other providers. So staff wanted to easily bring that in to the content that they were delivering to support their activities, but students also wanted to access that without any authentication issues or on the go using the device that they were holding in their hand. Students also wanted to attach their notes or attach their findings to the materials that were being provided to them for staff and take some ownership of their learning content that was being given to them. So rather than having a separate kind of file with their notes or their data, they wanted to put that in the context of the learning and the activity that they were doing. And then there was also this view of students should be able to customize and personalize that journey that they were going through. So we would perhaps give them a week-by-week kind of delivery and how that built. But as they got to key points, maybe exam revision or maybe an assignment hand-in around a particular topic, they then wanted to surface the topics that contributed to that piece of learning. So being able to flip that journey on its head. Again, as a project team, we didn't want to make any assumptions about what we were hearing. This is what we thought we were hearing. So we refined that prototype module. We built it again in our existing VLE. And we pushed it out to 26 live modules across the university. So this involved 2,500 students, around about 100 members of staff on the teaching teams. And again, we gathered in feedback around what were the things that we were doing that were good, what were the things that we'd missed perhaps along the way as part of the conversation. We held interviews with each of those 100 members of staff to find out what the challenges were with this new kind of approach that we were thinking about adopting. I'm really pleased to say that all those key aspirations, those principles that we defined, as well as the more routine kind of requirements that you require from a VLE, went into a huge tender document. And just about on Christmas Day of December 2016, we decided to partner with Canvas for the VLE provider and Talis for the integration of reading materials and external materials to embed them into the Canvas module websites. And Karen will talk a bit more about our rollout of Canvas.
I'll just briefly talk about what we've been doing then since last year around this time. We've been working in partnership with our schools. We've put together a really a big implementation team. We've got one of our, what we call our StudyNet training coordinators, Lucy, here with us. We've got two core people who do some training for staff. They've developed an online module in Canvas, which actually obviously show the principles of the guided learner journey that we're trying to implement across the institution. It was interesting when Jared was talking about small changes. We were, as I say, very well used to and had a really well embedded VLE, but we could not do a lift and drop of what was in that VLE or that online managed learning environment into Canvas. So this was an opportunity for us to start from scratch and ask staff to think about what they were doing, to think about the principles of the guided learner journey and how they would then implement that in each of their individual modules and courses as we move forward. So one of the things we did was produce a module which showed and which exhibited the principles of the guided learner journey as a way of training staff into using the new environment. We had teams allocated to each school, including students in every school, student mentors, and we did walkabouts. We literally walked on the corridors, knocked on staff's door. How are you? Do you know what you're doing to get your module into Canvas? Can we sit down and help you? And we did that on top of our normal regular workshops, drop-in sessions, the normal training sessions that you would expect. But those students, members of staff, the training coordinators, and the central teams all worked together to implement our big change. And we started with our first-year modules only, so we were phasing in the implementation, and we did that all through the course of last year. We were ready to go 100% of our modules for our first-year students at the start of semester A last year. And this year, we've been ready to go with every other module in the university. We have 100% of our modules live on Canvas. And that support has been really crucial to get that underway. So up until now, as you'll see just from the figures, we've had over 450 hours of tutors engaging with the Guided Learner Journey online module that we created. We've had 1,250 staff walks, office visits. It's been literally pacing the corridors, going in, sitting with staff, talking to them. We've had over now 1,400 staff trained in workshop sessions and in drop-in sessions. So lots and lots of effort to get us to where we are. And part of that is based around, this is a very busy slide, I'm not going to talk about too much, but part of that is actually based around pedagogy. We've always seen this not as a technical project, but a pedagogical and a change management project. We had big aspirations for what we wanted our VLE to do. We wanted it to be transformational, and we required changes in the way that staff and students were thinking about their learning, blended that online, that face-to-face, that whole environment. So we don't give them a template, but we give them the principles, and we give them a discussion in that first workshop around what is the underpinning pedagogy in your module, in your teaching? What is it that how do you engage with your students? What are the activities that you ask your students to do? Which are self-directed? Which are face-to-face? Where is formative assignment? Where is summative assignment? How does that all come together? And how does that then work out as a storyboard? So we give them this kind of storyboarding tool. The colour codes refer to different types of activity, so whether it's giving them information, giving the students content, whether it's asking them to engage in some kind of formative assignment, whether it's a pre-class activity, whether it's a group activity, and so on. And that's how we build up the storyboard. And from that storyboard, the individual lecturers can then implement their guided learner journey into the Canvas environment easily, but with their own stamp on it. And some of the examples we've had have been absolutely amazing. I'm only going to flash up 2 of them, but just the staff being able to use the video tools easily, to show their presence, to welcome students on that introduction page, to use lots of video and multimedia where they would normally have just put up a handout or something like that, has been quite a small change again, but a transformational change for both staff and students in the institution. Some other schools, this is the School of Creative Arts, have taken the opportunity with Canvas to rethink about what they actually are teaching at a programme level with the students. And where we've got groups of students very much in the studio, based in the studio, perhaps not using the environment as heavily as some other programmes where it's a lot more peer support and peer assessment, being able to be able to show that within Canvas very clearly, very cleanly, and show that rotation around the different types of learning activity as the semester progresses was the approach they took, so a slightly different approach. At our Learning and Teaching conference this year, we asked every school to nominate their top Canvas module site, and myself and 5 students of our student mentor team went round and we judged the sites and found a winner, and they got a lovely Canvas goodie bag and iPad for all the hard work that they'd done. But it was amazing the variety that we had from those principles and from that journey that we set out, that we could actually still allow pedagogy and staff to bring their own touches to what they were doing. Student feedback has been really, really good. This is only our first year. This was only first-year students we collated feedback from, but not untypical for those of you who've been using Canvas, I'm sure, for some time, the same sort of feedback from your students about it being helpful to see structure, to plan their time, being able to access their courses anywhere through the app, and so on. Greg's going to now talk about where we're going next.
So some of our principles, we're focused very much at module level, but some of our principles were at that programme level. And to pick up on Jared earlier, the openness of Canvas was one of the other criteria that we selected it for, the ability to be able to build things on top that would be unique to UH. So here we're presenting our programme level view. This went live over the summer. What it does is it brings together the combination of modules that contribute to the programme that's being delivered. And staff can very quickly go in and get that overview of where the topics are being delivered, where they're being contributed to, etc. The search bar in the top right would allow me to search for a term and see all the times that that topic has been delivered in. We also provide quick mechanisms through to the reading list, etc., so we can see the content that's being given to the students as well. So a really powerful team for programme teams to get together and have a look at how things are being developed. There's another quick link on there that pulls out the teaching team, again, so staff and students can see that teaching team, but also the assessment criteria. So this is a 100% coursework module. Also the learning outcomes, again, coming back to that kind of principle of putting the learning outcomes at the front, so we can see which ones are being developed and which ones are being assessed via this module. That leads us really quite nicely into the assessment landscape. So as a program team, I can quickly see the icons where the assessments are happening on this program. So staff can very quickly see where there's assessment bunching, but more critically, they can probably see where the first assignment's happening for students on their program, and therefore maybe give some additional support for that. By having that kind of knowledge and that kind of framework to work in, we think that helps us drive towards learning analytics and data analytics, which is now a topic that we're having at the university. This has just gone live in the last sort of 8 weeks, but we're already getting really positive feedback from academics that are engaging with this process. They're finding it a really powerful tool to see what their learning landscape looks like. We've also developed it so as you can look up a program, but you can also look up an individual student as well to go and have a look at their criteria. So if you're doing any pastoral care or one-to-one support, etc., you can go in and have a look at that student's learning landscape and assessment landscape as well. Okay.
And I suppose we are at a nice critical point of our journey. We've implemented Canvas. We have all our modules now there. We can now pull up that program level view. Students can see their full learning journey, how it looks in the learning environment, and where they are learning topics and where they are and what progress they are making across each of their modules and so on. We're looking now at how we can then take, as Greg says, all the data and the rich data that we can collect about our students through the VLE and through other mechanisms. And over the summer, we had a hack day again with staff and with students, looking at what we do next to take what we know about our students' journeys, both from a student perspective and from a staff perspective, to really feed back to them in a meaningful and positive way. Again, both students and staff, to help improve what we do with our students to transform their learning and also to transform our staff's practice in learning and teaching. And that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Like you, there's an audience potentially if we bring Canvas in who think, well, nothing's broken, what we're doing is okay, why would we change? And what was your initial ways of overcoming that?
I think it was just basically, it's a blank canvas. We know we've got something that works. It wasn't universally, as I said, popular. There were bits we knew that could be better. And I think it was a real drive for us to be at the forefront of technology-enhanced learning. It was let's just think really creatively. It wasn't, we're fed up with this VLE, let's bring another one in. It was actually about transforming practice. What do we want as a community for both staff and students to help make our experience better as a learning community? And that's really what we approached. We made it quite exciting. People came, they could actually take part in that. It was an ideas forum. It wasn't I'd like my VLE to be able to, turn feedback round in 3 weeks. It wasn't that level. It was very much aspirational, and I think everyone really bought into it, feeling they could contribute something to it. Anything you would add, Greg, to that?
No, I think that's a good summary. Yeah.
Okay.
To what extent does Canvas actually group together the modules into clusters of programs for you, or was the program view that you showed a module in its own right?
So it's a program view, but we use our student record system to give us those definitions of what a program looks like. So we can't cluster them at the moment within Canvas. I'm not sure we would, because we use that program data at other aspects of the university, etc. So we get it from an external source at the moment, and then we use that to pull those modules out into the groupings into an external system. But the richness of the Canvas APIs as a platform allows us to do that and bring the content together.
Do you use it with apprentices? And does it work as an e-portfolio? We are at the current using an e-portfolio, and would it replace that and integrate learning materials and the assessment side?
Yeah, we do use it with all of our students, including our apprentices. A lot of the apprenticeships do require an e-portfolio. The way we're tackling that is we're actually using the Office 365 integration, and we're using Class Notebook as the e-portfolio as part of that journey. So they can see their journey, they can see their modules. Clearly it's a bit more complicated because they've got work-based learning aspects and so on in there, but we get round that by using what we call we have a zero credit rated long thing module which runs along, and we are either embedding the class notebook into that, or we're actually embedding it in every module, which you can do. and the students just gather and collect things through that. And that's what the combination of those two things is working really well.
Hiya. We're just starting on our Canvas journey, if you like, and what I was curious about is the timescales. So how long did it take you from being Canvas curious to having full implementation?
So we were live within about 6 months, but we did phase it in. So we took our first year population and a handful of others that were exceptions to that where it made sense, as in new programs coming online, etc., that needn't invested in our VLE. So we did that. It was a smooth curve. It went remarkably well. We just decided to take the approach of phased, learn some lessons and apply those to the full mass rollout, if you will. So yeah, within about 6 months, give or take.
We went live in January. We had all of our first years, 100% of our modules, and I said it wasn't a lift and drop, wasn't a copy and paste. This was a recreation of the modules according to the principles of a guided learner journey by the start of semester A last year. And then this year we've rolled out every other module that we deliver. So that's nearer 4,000 modules in total. We're calling courses modules, by the way. I should say that it's the UK language pack. So our Canvas courses are modules and our modules are units. Yeah.